Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're all having a lovely day. Except for those of you, of course, that have updated to Big Sur. You're probably not having a lovely day. So let's discuss this, because this is something that I talked about in a video just a few months back with Catalina, and it seems like deja vu all over again. So in this video, I was going over one of the issues with Catalina. There's actually two. I only discussed one in this video, and I'll link it down below. The first issue is that when people were updating to Catalina, it was seemingly bricking the T2 firmware on their machines. So with new machines with the T2 chip actually takes on a lot of the responsibility that used to be with the system management controller. And the system management controller would speak to these chips called the CD3215. The CD3215 is what speaks to the charger and tells the charger, charge me. So USB-C charger can be used to charge a phone, but it can also be used to charge a MacBook, which means there's voltage differences. It can be used at 5 volts, 9 volts, 20 volts, and the charger has got to know what it's going to put out. So that chip, the CD3215, would say, hey, I'm a Mac. I want 20 volts, not 5 volts. Charge me. And that would work. With people who were updated to Catalina, many people who updated to Catalina would show up and say, I just updated to Catalina, and now my machine is dead. What would happen is it would corrupt the T2 chip firmware. And as I discussed in that video, the way you can tell is with a USB-C amp meter, it would be stuck at 5 volts and be drawing 60 milliamps. That's very, very common for machines with corrupt T2 chip firmware. So you would fix the issue, and I went over how to fix it in this video, and then it would work again. This was very surprising to me because I'm not used to operating system updates messing with the BIOS, the SPI-ROM, or other parts of the computer other than your hard drive and its operating system. Windows is in many ways a garbage operating system, and it is filled with flaws. Microsoft is a flawed company. However, as bad as Windows has gotten, even back in the Windows Vista days where you would update and everything would break to the point where you couldn't even open a program in your web browser, one thing that is kind of a sacred pact I have with my Windows PC is that it's never going to mess with my BIOS. When I run Windows Update, it's not going to brick my BIOS. It's not going to touch that stuff. It's going to ruin everything on my hard drive. My programs may not open properly. It may try to reboot my computer in the middle of an effing stream as it has done before Windows 10 got its shit together with updates. But it's not going to mess with everything else. And OS 10 just managed to think differently yet again, because with Catalina, it was breaking the T2 chip. So you could just run an operating system update and think the worst thing that's going to happen here is it bricks my partition that my drive is on. I just have to boot from an external. And what would actually happen is you could no longer even charge your computer after an operating system update. Craziness. What I didn't discuss in that video is that this issue was also affecting people who were using older machines as well, the pre-T2 machines. What it would do there is it would corrupt their SPI-ROM. And when it would corrupt their SPI-ROM, what would happen is that the machine would just kind of be bricked or black screen and look brain dead. And what you would do to fix this problem is you would reflash the BIOS. So you'd open up the machine, take the board out, take the BIOS chip out, put it in a programmer, flash it with a clean ME region, put it back in the machine, solder it all back, and it would work again. I'm not going to get into the whole management engine region when flashing a BIOS, but if you're not flashing BIOSes with clean ME regions, you should know any machines after the Core 2 Duo, Core i5, i7 and up, you're going to be screwing up the machine in some way. So just make sure that you have a clean ME region. But I digress. You would flash the BIOS, and the machine would work as it's intended to function. Now, again, the question then becomes, why are you messing with the SPI-ROM when someone's updating their operating system? They think that the worst thing that can happen is it bricks the partition on their hard drive or SSD, and then they get a brain-dead machine, which even if they wanted to boot from their external Lacy Firewire 400 hard drive with a Fujitsu in it, they can't. I still have that in my desk from yesterday. That's kind of messed up. It's kind of messed up. But again, if people are going to use it and they are going to have these problems, then I'm not going to say no to taking their money when they show up at the store when the Apple Store doesn't help them. The Apple Store did not help a lot of people that had the SPI-ROM issues. You can imagine they were not the most accommodating of the customers whose BIOSes had been corrupted by their own operating system update to the point of breaking their hardware. Now, it seems like this exact same thing is happening again with Big Sur. With Big Sur, as you can read over here, this is an issue where it is bricking the older MacBook Pro models, not the newest one. They get stuck permanently on a black screen. This is the same exact thing that was happening with Catalina on the older machines. Now, I have not yet confirmed that this issue is an issue with the SPI-ROM. However, the symptoms are identical to user updates, and it no longer works. Now, anybody who works in this business is used to getting these phone calls, dating back over 10 years, because when people update to a new operating system, something goes wrong. Oftentimes, customers would update to a new operating system and their drive would die. And the way I would explain it to my customers is I would say, it's kind of like asking a 120-year-old grandma to climb up 10 flights of stairs. She may be able to walk to the bathroom, she may be able to pick up the remote control, but asking someone to climb 10 flights of stairs can take someone who had health issues and simply kind of reveal to you that they had those health issues. So you could be using your computer with a hard drive that has bad sectors on it, and to open up Safari works just fine. But when you ask it to download and then reinstall an entire operating system, then you're going to see it crash. It's not necessarily the operating system that did it. The new operating system simply revealed the flaws in your hardware. This is different. This is different. This is with Catalina. This is where the operating system update is actually bricking the SPI-ROM, or otherwise known as the BIOS on a PC laptop. It's actually bricking the BIOS of the machine. It's actually corrupting the BIOS when you're updating the operating system. And again, as shitty as Windows computers can be, shitty as Microsoft can be, it's kind of like the sacred pact there, which is when I hit Windows Update, I expect that you're going to ravage my hard drive and the bugs and crashing and terrible things, but that I'll be able to boot off an external. You'll leave me the right to boot off of my external with a working copy of my operating system. You're not going to destroy my machine's ability to charge by crashing the T2 firmware, or its ability to think or turn on and not have a black screen by messing with the BIOS. But it seems like it's happening again. And one of the things that I just think it's really clear to get across here is when I talk about right to repair and I say that I would like to remain in this industry, not like this. Not like this. Like, I got into this industry because the idea of working on hard drives, that when you drop them and they click and DD Rescue can't fix them, that's a challenge. That's exciting. I want to solve that problem. When someone's phone gets wet in the rain and they thought it was waterproof and it wasn't, and their last backup didn't work, soldering and doing electronics troubleshooting, running jumper wires, scraping layers off boards to get it to power on again, that's something that I could feel excited about. Working on a MacBook where the charger kills its power circuitry, or it was plugged in when lightning struck, or someone spills something on it and they need the data on it. That's a challenge. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to buy a CD3217 or an ISL 9240 power chip so that I can finish working on the problems that exist. I was not asking Apple to create new problems, particularly ones that are just, honestly, no challenge and fairly boring to solve. I want to be in this industry for the long haul, for the difficult problems, for the stuff that I can really, feel pride at the end of the day, like I did something, not like reflashing BIOSes. This is boring. And again, as I said, I got rent to pay. I have employees to pay. Someone walks in who's still buying Apple products in the year 2020 with all the information out there on how they treat people when they have hardware defects that are usually their fault. I'm not going to say no to their money to fix the machine and give it back to them. But when I said that I want to remain in the repair industry, not like this. I wasn't asking you to put bugs in your new operating systems that destroy the SPI-ROM firmware and destroy the T2 firmware on your computers. I wasn't asking you to come up with unprecedented software updates that stop a device's ability to charge at a hardware level. I wasn't asking for this. Again, I'm not going to say no to the money if it comes in the store. I will fix it. I am a repair shop. But that's not how I want to stay in the repair industry. When I say I want to stay in the repair industry, I'm saying allow Texas Instruments to allow their vendors to let me buy a CD3217. Allow Intersil's vendors to allow me to buy an ISL 9240 so that I could fix the problems that already exist in the world. Don't just start creating new problems. And here, if you're the Apple engineer that did this, if you're the Apple engineer responsible for, since Catalina, the fact that you can literally destroy the SPI-ROM, T2 chip firmware by updating the operating system, I get it. I'll pat you on the back. You had the right idea. You wanted to make sure that me and my employees could still eat, pay rent, have these nice granolas and little chocolate pretzels that Erica likes to get me. I appreciate it. But this is not the way that I want to stay in the industry. I want to be able to have some pride at the end of the day. Feel like I actually did something. Feel like I worked on something, and I made something work that required, some good old-fashioned effort, electronics detective work, troubleshooting, soldering, skills, head swapping, not just senseless, mindless BIOS chip crap. That's boring. I would not be surprised if the issue with Big Sur, and the reason that the exact same problems that were happening with Catalina are also happening with Big Sur, is because when you update to Big Sur, it's doing something to mess with the SPI-ROM in the machine, and that's why this is happening. Because as many of you know, when you update to certain Mac OS operating systems, it won't let you go back to older ones anymore. You won't be able to boot them anymore. So it must be doing something to the SPI-ROM. And there's should be a checkbox there. Should be a checkbox. Listen, we'll update you the new OS. Oh, by the way, do you accept the fact that we're going to be touching your BIOS? There's a small chance this will break your computer, because when you open up anything on any of, like, your crappy little PC motherboard, BIOS, flash, and utilities, it'll usually say, like, there's this small chance of bricking. Make sure you don't have anything else open, blah, blah, blah. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? Because you're touching the BIOS, which could break the whole machine. Put something there so that they know, listen, it's not just that I'm getting, it's not the worst risk in the world that the operating system stops booting and you corrupt my partition. It could be that you actually kill my entire computer. Because people they do kind of care about these things. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. Enjoy your update to Big Sur. Bye now.